What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the neighborhood. If this is your first time here, welcome to the show. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back and thanks for being here. Today, we're talking about the 2023 Game Awards. Welcome to the podcast where two longtime friends and sometimes a guest talk about their favorite games from the perspective of an average player. My name is Andrew Kimball.
And I'm Dylan Wren, and we are your friendly neighborhood gamers.
The Game Awards is an annual awards ceremony honoring achievements in the video game industry. Established in 2014, the show is produced and hosted by games journalist Geoff Keighley, who worked on its predecessor, the Spike Video Game Awards, for over 10 years. In addition to the awards, the Game Awards features premieres of upcoming games and new information on previously announced titles. So I wrote up that little blurb before we watched the show this year, Dylan. And if I wanted to get a bunch of likes and shares on my X post, I would have flipped those and said that in addition to announcements, it also features awards.
Yeah, it definitely. I still enjoyed it. I still had a fun time. Like I think it. I'm not buying into the internet dichotomy of like it either has to be the greatest thing ever or it's trash and I hate it. It's the worst thing ever. Like I'm not the sort of hyperbole of like there can't be any in between. I had a good time with it, but yeah, it definitely seems like this year they heard a lot of the people whining and complaining last year. Probably the same people that are posting about how it didn't have enough awards this year. Who were the same people last year complaining that, it was too much awards. I don't care about these developers talking. Show me more, cool trailers or whatever. And it's just kind of like, you guys will just never be happy. So whatever.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's one of those things that it's very specific to our hobby, to this industry. And so I enjoy kind of tuning in and checking it out. It's a fun thing to do on a Thursday night once a year, but kind of the take I've been seeing and that I agree with is the whole them like rushing and trying to play off basically everybody that was accepting an award while letting the celebrities just kind of go on and on and on with their most of the time cringy bits.
Yeah. Well, they paid people to write those, I'm sure. So it's like we gotta get our money's worth. We gotta let them. They didn't pay these developers to write a speech. They paid some writers to write whatever Simu Liu was saying or Anthony Mackie.
Which, yeah, I get that from a production / business standpoint, but from a show that is supposed to be, it is the Game Awards and is supposed to be recognizing all of the great achievements of the gaming industry over the last year. It's like, maybe we should cut down on the long-winded celebrity bits and let the developers who were supposed to be honoring tonight actually get to say their piece before they're rushed off stage.
Yeah. Which, I mean, like, is fair. I do think that there is a middle ground to where they're at, and
they haven't found it yet.
Well, and I don't know if Geoff Keighley and the team behind it is trying to cater to the vocal minority on Twitter or X, as you'll remind me that it is called now.
It is called X.
Like, I don't know if they're trying to cater to them, but it's one of those where it's like, I feel like the average person watching this who's like into games would be fine with more developer talk and less trailers. Like, I do think they could cut back on some of that, but I'm not like mad at what we watched last night,
Yeah. No, and for me, it's not even really the announcements I think they should cut back on. It's just more of the other filler stuff. It's like you had, like you mentioned, Anthony Mackie and some of these people up there just going on and on and on with their bits. And then the music would kick on anytime somebody was trying to accept an award and they'd like rush them off stage. I think there's a better balance there to be found.
Yeah.
But I mean, the only reason that an average person tunes into this show is for the announcements. Most of the people that watch it are diehard. Like there was a narrative, kind of a dialogue before the show of a bunch of people in the industry saying that, well, if Geoff Keighley doesn't say something about all of the layoffs this year, then I mean, that's ridiculous. I'm like, I don't agree with that. That's not what this show is about. It's about the games themselves and the accomplishments in gaming. And sure, yeah, the industry took some hits, but I mean, this isn't really the time or place or platform or really even the person necessarily to address that. So like the industry does have a tendency to kind of get really hung up in its own little ecosystem and not see beyond that. So I do get that as well. But just as a show, I think that we still haven't quite found that right balance between cool announcements, giving the awards time to breathe, and then all the silly stuff that Geoff wants to do. Like there is a balance there, and I don't think we've quite hit it. But I mean, I was entertained pretty much the whole time. I thought last night was one of the, like, it was a Game Awards that went by quickly for me. Like I was like, oh, it's over already? Like that was pretty, that was a good show. Like last year, I felt like the last hour really drug on. Like some of the years have really felt like really poorly paced. This one was like pretty brisk. They kept things moving, but it was just like some of the things where we're rushing through the awards and we're rushing through the like acceptance speeches, but then we're letting the celebrities or some of these like Jordan Peele and Kojima up there talk for like 10-15 minutes about a game that's literally just a cinematic with real actors at this point. Not even there's nothing to show.
It's just a figment of Kojima's imagination at this point.
Exactly.
And it will be a real game at some point, but there's a lot of, I don't think it would have hurt to say something about like, oh, the layoffs. I understand from like the business standpoint of like how it would complicate things greatly because, you know, some of the people that have laid off are probably big sponsors of the show. And so definitely understand. But I think they could say something along the lines of like, it's always a bummer to see layoffs. You know, our hearts go out to all the developers who have been affected by that or something, you know, like I could see them saying something, especially since like I can understand the sentiment more since when Kojima got let go from Konami. What is it? Which one is it?
Yeah, it was Konami.
Like Geoff was very big on the like fuck Konami train and used his platform to do that. So like I can understand it to some extent, but you know, it is one of those two where it's like, where would they have fit that in? You know, like they would have had to cut back on some of like what you're saying, which I think they could have. I feel like I'd rather see a show that they're shooting to end at like 10 o'clock and it ends by 9:30 because they just didn't have, like, the developers didn't say enough, than to have a show shooting to end at 10 but no one gets to say anything because they've got it so like blocked out for like, okay, we need Anthony Mackie needs 5 minutes of stand-up material for him to, you know, like, and don't get me wrong, I love Anthony Mackie and whatever, but it's like it felt to me much more produced, like much more on like a time schedule, and I can see it. To me, it feels like an overcorrection from last year where Christopher Judge got up there for like 10 minutes or whatever, and so rather than have that happen again, they were like, okay, we're gonna like very strictly plan out every single minute of this show, and we're going to be playing off, you know, the developers pretty much as soon as they get up there. and to me, that felt like a little bit of an overcorrection.
Yeah.
Again, didn't hate it. I didn't. It's cool to see people get up there and think they're fans and the teams that made them and whatever, and like I do appreciate that and like that, but I am definitely one of those average gamers that's here to see like cool stuff. It's like, oh hey, there's a game that no, granted too, maybe this year was a little different because watching it's like, oh hey, look at all those games I didn't play. you know so maybe there's a little bit of a disconnect there as well for me.
So if you're tuning into this and you are one of the people that we're attempting to reach with this show and you are just an average gamer, the Game Awards, what we're talking about is it's a show hosted by Geoff Keighley every year at the end of the year in December, where the industry recognizes a bunch of games that release throughout the year in a bunch of various categories, and they're all voted on by industry outlets and influencers and whatnot. And then there's like a tiny sliver of the community that gets to cast their vote online. There's one category that's 100% community voted, but I think the community vote weighs in for maybe like 10% overall. I feel like I heard that somewhere, but you can fact check me if you want. So alongside that, the rest of the show is like announcements of upcoming games or kind of like updates on games that we maybe know about but haven't heard from in a while, or whatever. Like, or maybe we have heard from, like Senua's Saga.
Yeah,
we got to see that again.
Have heard a few years about that.
Yeah. So what we're going to do in this episode is we are going to go through the awards, read out who won, maybe give our brief thoughts on each of the categories, and then the second half of the episode will shift into what were some of our favorite announcements, because I feel like every year, ever since I've been podcasting, even back in the Level Playing Field days, it was a conversation about what's wrong with the Game Awards and what can they do to make it better. But this year I kind of want to focus on who won.
Yeah.
What do we think about that? And then what were some of our favorite announcements? Because this was a hell of a year for games. So the categories were pretty stacked across the board. And then because it was such a big year for releases, we really don't know that much about the future at this point. We have some kind of nebulous games that we know are in development, like Insomniac's Wolverine and Elder Scrolls 6 and things like that technically, we've been told exist, but we don't have any real concrete information. So this is a good time and a good place for us to get some more announcements to kind of get excited about things in the future. And I think there were a lot of things in this show to get excited about. So we're definitely we're going to touch on that. But since it is the Game Awards and not the game announcements, we will start with the awards. I pulled up the IGN article that you linked, and I figured I could just go from bottom to top on this one, and we can share our thoughts. Some of these earlier categories, we're not going to have a lot to say.
Yeah.
But as we get towards the bigger categories, I'm sure we'll have more thoughts. So the first one, the bottom one in this article, is the player's voice, which was the category that is 100% voted on by fans, which is the one I referenced just a few minutes ago. And our nominees were Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077 with Phantom Liberty, Genshin Impact, Marvel Spider-Man 2, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. This was the first of many that Baldur's Gate 3 took.
Yeah. I was a little surprised on this one. Like, don't get me wrong, Baldur's Gate 3 is a massive game and took the world by storm, and there are a lot of good fans out there. But I was a little bit surprised to not see, like, any of the fan contingents hop on this and, like, try to sway the vote. Like,
I wonder if Final Fantasy had been an option if that could have pulled in. But it was a divisive Final Fantasy. So
but even just, like, the PlayStation game on the list, all, like you said, the people that are watching this, and probably especially the people who are voting for this, are the hardcore gamers who also tend to be the very like console wars type of gamers. And so I was a little surprised to see, like, I thought this one might be where Spider-Man would shine, or like Legend of Zelda, all the Nintendo like fans coming out the woodwork to praise Zelda. I'm not shocked Baldur's Gate 3 won, but I was a little surprised that, like, I thought this one might be like, oh, Spider-Man 2 wins because all of the Sony fans came out to give it praise.
Yeah, going into this one, I wasn't 100% sure of any outcome. I was like, oh, I could see this going a couple different ways, but Baldur's Gate was one of those ways, and so I wasn't.
Now, when you
shocked.
voted, did you vote? What did you vote for?
I should have pulled that website up so I could know definitively, but I want to say, man, that's tough because I probably didn't go Baldur's Gate, but I could see myself going Cyberpunk, Spider-Man, or Zelda. It was probably Cyberpunk or Zelda or Cyberpunk or Spider-Man because I thought that Zelda and Baldur's Gate would like sweep a lot more categories at the top. What about you? Did you go?
I voted,
which of these games did you play? You didn't play any of these games.
Of them. Yeah, so I haven't played any of these games, which
you
was
ain't Genshin Impact.
A bummer. Yeah, so I voted no. So I think I voted for either Cyberpunk or Baldur's Gate 3. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Which one? Because I was like, I know that I'm going to like Cyberpunk 2077 because I really like the original Cyberpunk game.
You're probably gonna love it actually once you get to it.
And then Baldur's Gate 3 is installing as we speak.
I thought you were going to say you were already like 8 hours into it because it came out yesterday. So.
not yet. I have not gotten a chance to play it. It is 130 something gigs that I am installing, but I had to verify, since it is December now, I had to verify with the family that it was not already purchased for me somehow.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, I couldn't pull the trigger immediately. I had to wait a little bit on it. But
even though we were sitting on the couch next to each other, refreshing the Microsoft store because we saw a flash of the Baldur's Gate 3 title, and you were like, it was there. It was there. I swear it was there. But you think that your family somehow had bought it for you already.
Well, I wasn't sure if my sister did. She was the main one.
She bought you a whole PlayStation. And
no, well, because you could pre-order the deluxe edition on Xbox, and so I was not sure if that was potentially
if it had been pre-ordered. I got you. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I needed to check just to be safe. So, but yeah, I did go home and add it to my cart immediately, and was in the process, like my finger was hovering over the buy now button, and I'm like, she's not up right now. So like, I could just buy it and be like, oops, but I chose not to.
What a good brother. The next category we have here is Best Adaptation, which is celebrating game-inspired projects across entertainment, including TV, movies, comics, and more. We have Castlevania Nocturne, a show that I will watch whenever I get back on Netflix.
Same.
Gran Turismo, The Last of Us, the Super Mario Brothers movie, and Twisted Metal. 3 PlayStation things on there, which I now kind of realized.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, Gran Turismo is on this list because nothing else came out this year. Like they needed an extra thing to fill out this category.
Yeah, I was trying to remember when the last season of Cuphead came out because I feel like it could have made it on there. But the winner, surprising nobody, was The Last of Us. Do you remember what you voted for here?
I think I probably voted for The Last of Us, but I might have voted for Castlevania.
Yeah, this was one of the least shocking categories in the show. I mean, the people voting, it just made sense. I probably voted for the Super Mario Bros. Movie, if we're being honest. But
you're just a big Chris Pratt fan.
Yeah, I love Chris Pratt. I saw a TikTok of him like rapping to old school Eminem the other day. I was like, man, this guy's great.
It's such an old sentence.
But The Last of Us won. So
shocking.
I did watch that show. I thought it was pretty good. But I also played the game, and so I saw every single thing coming before it came. But,
Yeah. I'm trying to decide which one I want to play through or watch first, because I do. It's on my list of stuff. I have enjoyed all of the trailers for Twisted, or all of the like clips that I have seen of Twisted Metal. I just am not going to create a Peacock account or whatever, figure out if like someone in my family has a Peacock account that I can mooch off of. Like it
doesn't seem good enough to justify all that.
Well, already I'm like, if if it's not Disney Plus or if it's not like HBO, Disney Plus, Netflix, or Hulu, like if it's like Amazon, I'm already like, really? Like I've got to sign into Amazon to do this? Or
what about Apple TV?
Apple TV, I am making the sacrifice to watch the Godzilla show, but the only thing in this house that's connected to Apple TV is like the TV out in the living room, so I have to like watch it out there whenever it's free. So it's usually like 11 o'clock at night that I'm watching it. So, it's fun. I enjoy it, but it's also like, I don't even think there's an app on Xbox to watch Apple TV.
Yeah, there is.
There is? Okay.
Yeah, there is, yeah. Because I downloaded the Apple TV app to watch Mythic Quest. Like, Apple TV, I think, is actually kind of a sleeper with some of the shows they've got on there.
I like every show I've watched on there.
You just don't ever think about them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, once it's not like one of the big 3 or 4 like streaming platforms, I'm like, I forget they exist. So that is Twisted Metal's problem. And it'll be Fallout's problem when it comes on Amazon, because I'm going to be like, I don't feel like going through Amazon's god awful like search feature to find Fallout TV show. So
the next category we had was most anticipated game. So this is recognizing an announced game that has demonstrably illustrated potential to push the gaming media forward. Lord. We have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Hades 2, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Star Wars Outlaws, and Tekken 8.
Now that you're saying push the gaming medium forward, I have a lot of skepticism about the games on this list. Because Final Fantasy, I know that you're going to tell me that, they're doing something different than the original game, but it's not pushing the medium forward. It's the same game that came out in 1997 or whatever. Just fancier.
It's not the same game. And actually, the way that they're pushing the medium forward is probably their combat system, because it's a really cool blend of like turn-based and like real-time action. Also just like fidelity, like the Final Fantasy games always look crazy. Most of these games, though, I don't feel like are pushing anything forward. Like Hades 2, we haven't seen enough of. Like a Dragon is going to be...
Well, and Hades 2 is going to be just a refinement on Hades. It's not, to me, that's not pushing
maybe
forward.
We haven't seen anything. We've seen one cinematic. We don't know. We know there's a different character that you're like potentially playing as, but we don't know anything about the gameplay loop. Like, is it going to be dramatically different, or is it, like you said, just going to be iterative? We don't know. Star Wars Outlaws, it's going to be probably a cool Ubisoft third-person shooter, I guess, but it could also be trash, because Ubisoft
it could also be a trash Ubisoft third-person shooter.
Exactly. So all that to say that Final Fantasy VII won this one and did not shock me at all.
No, I was not surprised by this. I hoped that maybe Hades or Star Wars would take this one, but I was not surprised when Final Fantasy did.
Yeah, I voted for Final Fantasy because that's my most excited, because I know it's going to come out next year, whereas like Hades 2, if it comes out next year, will be in a early access kind of situation. So we have a bunch of esports categories here. So
do you want to read them, or do you just want to
I'll blitz through all of them real quick, just like they did at the Game Awards. Best esports team went to JD Gaming. Best esports game went to Valorant. Best esports event went to League of Legends World Championship. Best esports coach went to Christine Potter Chi. Probably Chi.
Probably.
Best esports athlete was Lee Faker Son Hyuk. Content creator of the year was Iron Mouse, which we all got to witness that together.
I didn't know any of the content creators this year. I was just
People Make Games was the only one that I knew, and that's the one I voted for.
Yeah.
And I don't know that, like, I don't watch their content consistently, but like that's the only name I recognized.
Yeah.
They also say for a streamer or content creator who has made an important and positive impact on the community in 2021, which I feel like is a typo. Like IGN used this template and didn't fix the year.
Fix the typo. What are you saying? IGN may have just been churning out an article How
Yeah,
dare you?
let's just replace it with an 8. And it'll... okay, so now back into the categories we can speak on a little bit more. We have Best Multiplayer Game. Candidates were Baldur's Gate 3, Diablo 4, Party Animals, Street Fighter 6, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder.
I looked at this and I was like, I know that all of these games have multiplayer, obviously, right? I don't like this was one of the main ones last night where I was just kind of like, I don't know that I agree with this. Like, for sure, Baldur's Gate 3, amazing. Don't know if it needed the best multiplayer, though. Don't know if it even had, like, if I would even say it has the best multiplayer.
No,
I haven't played it,
the only
but...
experience I have with the multiplayer is Aubrey and Joe starting a multiplayer campaign and then splitting off and deciding to play it single player because they were like missing out on content because the other person was interacting with it and stuff. So,
yeah,
like for me, I thought for sure this would go Diablo 4 or Street Fighter because those are the only two games that are really like multiplayer focused, it seems like. Whereas, well, I mean, Party Animals is also multiplayer, but that is also kind of just, it's that smaller kind of, oh, it's cool to see it here, but there's no way it's actually going to win.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking too, like, what other games came out that were like more multiplayer centric, even, you know, like Remnant 2 came to my mind as like a Souls-like with a like online system that doesn't suck. Like, you know?
Yeah.
So that one
Remnant
was like,
2. I mean, obviously, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 would have been a multiplayer game, but yeah. I mean, I think this just goes to show kind of the state of video games, or maybe it was just, you know, this year happened to have bigger games that were less multiplayer focused because again, it's industry people voting on these categories, so they may have just missed out on some of the games that were multiplayer focused and been like, oh yeah, Baldur's Gate is a good game that has multiplayer, let's vote for it.
Yeah, like this category to me felt like, well, I've played Baldur's Gate. I haven't tried out the multiplayer, but I know Baldur's Gate is good, so let's just give it to this game, you know.
Yeah, and I don't know if I have said yet, but Baldur's Gate 3 won.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got the award. So, congratulations, Baldur's Gate 3.
Yes, as if you needed more.
Yeah, exactly. Add it to the list. The next one, best sim/strategy game, we had
Another
Advance
one I
Wars.
had issues with.
Advance Wars 1 plus Nothing Reboot Camp. Another typo from IGN.
What?
City Skylines 2, Company of Heroes 3, Fire Emblem Engage, and Pikmin 4. Which, out of all these games,
wins,
Pikmin 4 won. And that's the one I think I heard the most like positive things about.
Yeah.
When it came out, but also not that many people were like were playing it because it was such a big year.
Yeah, it's one where it's like I don't like Company of Heroes got good reviews. I think so. I think I drafted it. I could be wrong. Maybe I didn't draft this game in our fantasy league. Someone did though, and it got like an 80 something. You know, like it got good reviews. Okay. Advance Wars. Yeah. I think, you know, I thought it was going to go to Advance Wars because people back in the day had a lot of like nostalgia for Advance Wars. And so when it finally came out, I thought like, oh, okay, like it'll probably go to that. I was not expecting Pikmin 4, but
yeah,
I knew it wasn't going to be Fire Emblem or City Skylines because both of those were like meh. It seemed like to the industry.
Neither one of them really lit the world on fire. Yeah, that was my thing. I thought for sure it was going to be Pikmin or Company of Heroes because I didn't know anything about Company of Heroes, but I'd heard really good things about Pikmin.
Yeah.
So interesting category. The next one we have was best sports/racing game. EA Sports FC24, F1 23, Forza Motorsport, Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 Turbocharged, The Crew Moto Fest, and the winner was
another typo.
Yeah, Moto Fest. The Crew Moto Fest. Forza Motorsport, Lord, took it home.
Yeah.
And I voted for Hot Wheels.
I also voted for Hot Wheels. Cool, Forza.
Yeah.
I'm just not a motorsport Forza. I'm not really a Forza person in general. Like I'm not really a sports/racing game person in general, besides like MLB The Show, which I'll play for like 2 months every year. But motorsports is good, I guess. It's one that I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, cool. I don't know. This category to me is very much like, I'm sure somebody is like a big fan of these, but I'm always shocked to see like FIFA end up there, because all I ever hear about FIFA is people complaining about how it's just the same game over and over and over again.
This category is probably one of the best examples of if average gamers actually voted in this awards show and were weighted, how different it would be, because the industry is like, oh yeah, that new Forza game was good, right? And so it wins. Not like you said, not to say there aren't fans of some of these games that are in the industry.
Yeah.
But the like sports/racing genres are so underserved in industry circles that it's like, oh yeah, Forza got really good reviews. Yeah, okay, we'll vote for that. So, and yeah, I'm sure it deserves, like, it's a solid game, but
Yeah.
That was one of the ones they blitzed through, if I remember correctly.
It was not a main award.
Next we have Best Family Game, Disney Illusion Island, which is one that I still kind of want to check out. Party Animals, Pikmin 4, Sonic Superstars, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder. There was no shot that Mario didn't win this, and it won this. So
yeah, your daughter was excited.
Yeah, because they did this in the pre-show, didn't they? Yeah, it was like the first pre-show
award. They did like one like first look at Joseph Ferris's game.
Oh, the remake, yeah.
And then they were like, "Hey, Best Family Game," and we were like, "Whoa, they're starting early."
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. It's a great game. I really enjoyed it. Played it with my daughter. Disney Illusion Island, I could see being the only other one to stand a chance in this category. The other three, it's like, it's cool to see them there, but
yeah, it was always going to be Mario Bros.
Exactly. Next category we have is Best Fighting Game, God of Rock, which I had never heard of, but I heard somebody, maybe it's kind of funny, look it up and talk about it when they were doing their episode, and was like, oh, the concept sounds really cool. I might need to check that out. Mortal Kombat 1, Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl 2, which you and I probably need to stream at some point, Pocket Bravery, and Street Fighter 6.
Yep.
The winner was Street Fighter 6, which is what I voted for.
Yeah. I probably voted for that one as well, even though I didn't want to. But it was the only one that was like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Like, all the other ones are clearly not the winner of this category.
The only other one that stood a chance was Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about another iconic, like, decades old fighting game alongside Street Fighter, but Street Fighter had kind of a troubled game last, like Street Fighter 5 had its issues, and then this game was such like a comeback story. It was such a big hit at the early part of this year, whereas Mortal Kombat 1 was coming behind Mortal Kombat 10 and 11, which were both great games, and so it was like, oh yeah, this is another really good Mortal Kombat game, and so it just, to me, read like, yeah, Street Fighter, the story they have going into this and the quality of the game they made, like, they're going to take this award for sure. Next is Best RPG, Baldur's Gate 3, Final Fantasy 16, Lies of P, Sea of Stars, and Starfield. You don't even have to read anything beyond Baldur's Gate 3 and maybe Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah, this is the lone category that Starfield was nominated for. And there was no way that they were going to win it. Even if Baldur's Gate 3 was not, like, if they had been like, hey, we know Baldur's Gate's going to win Game of the Year, so we're going to take it out of Best RPG category, give something else a fighting chance, Starfield would still be at the bottom of that list. Like,
interesting, because Final Fantasy 16, the big complaint about it was that it wasn't RPG enough. So it would have been between Lies of P, Sea of Stars, and Starfield, and you don't think Starfield would have stood a chance?
No. Like, I was not impressed with Starfield. Like, the more that I've sat on it, like, the more I'm just like, there's been absolutely no desire to go back or anything. I do wonder what would have gotten, like, that spot.
Probably Sea of Stars would have taken it if it was just between those three, but yeah. I don't know.
So,
but Baldur's Gate won. I don't know if we said that, but Baldur's Gate took another one here.
Yeah.
Deservedly so. Like,
it's hard to argue with that one, you know, like, yeah, best RPG for sure. So
it's like the granddaddy of all RPGs wins best RPG.
I was gonna say that one definitely is probably on, like, in the running now for, like, one of the best RPGs of all time. From what it sounds like. So
you'll find out soon, maybe after this recording. Who knows?
Maybe.
Well, you'll probably just get through the tutorial tonight, which
Yeah, I'll blitz through that character creation though.
you have to make 2 characters though.
That's true. I read something the other day. It was like an infographic of Baldur's Gate, and it was like 14% of all like time has been spent, like of gameplay time has been spent in the character creator.
Oh yeah.
So...
Well, it's like me. I played through the character creator, and then I like am technically at the end of Act 1, but I haven't gone back because it's just such a commitment to play Baldur's Gate 3 that I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll play this other game that is like much like less of a commitment, and so I just keep like putting it off. Next, we have Best Action/Adventure Game: Alan Wake 2, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Which Zelda took this one, which for me was a ominous sign because I was pulling for Zelda to win it all. But this was the one where I was kind of hoping Star Wars might take it.
Same. This was the one that I hoped to see either Star Wars or Spider-Man get it.
Yeah, I think I voted Star Wars.
I knew Star Wars and Spider-Man stood no chance against like Tears of the Kingdom, and in like other categories, and I was like, maybe it'll get like Best Action Adventure because they know they're not going to vote for it for like Game of the Year, you know.
Well, and when I look at this category, like Zelda, it's a hell of an adventure. But like when I think action adventure, when I think that category, Star Wars and Spider-Man fit that image in my mind the best.
Yeah, because there's a lot of Zelda where you can just run around not... Because they have a best action game, which we'll talk about next, but they don't have like a best adventure game. And I feel like Zelda fits way more into the adventure side of it versus everything else in this category, which is definitely more on the action side, but also has puzzle solving, I guess. So that's why it's action adventure.
Yeah. I was hoping for Star Wars, didn't get it. Obviously, I mean, this year is so stacked. It'd be so interesting to do like a remix of Game Awards where you just take like games from different years and just like shuffle them and see how it shakes out. But it's like a topic idea right there.
Yeah, write that down.
I will forget it. So next, like you mentioned, we have Best Action Game: Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon, Dead Island 2, love to see it here, Ghost Runner 2, Hi-Fi Rush, and Remnant 2. So a big category for games that didn't show up anywhere else. I'm pretty sure all of these except Hi-Fi Rush were only here.
I believe so.
So Armored Core ended up winning, which I think that's what I voted for that one. Definitely, I think it deserved the nod. I think second place for me would have been Remnant.
Yeah, I think I voted for Remnant because I voted in the midst of playing Remnant 2.
Yeah.
But I knew, like, to me, there was never a doubt that it was going to Armored Core 6 because it's the FromSoft game. It's the only place the FromSoft game is. And it was a very good game from everything that I've heard. It's not a game that I'm like rushing out to play or buy, but it's one that when eventually I do play it, I'm expecting to enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the FromSoft game, but it's them like reviving a dormant series in a modern era and bringing in new fans to that series who enjoyed it, but also appeasing like the diehards. So
yeah.
Looking at it through that lens, it's a very impressive feat. But yeah, this category was like, where do we put all these kind of dregs of society? Well, put them in action game.
Yeah.
Next, we had innovation in accessibility: Diablo 4, Forza Motorsport, Hi-Fi Rush, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Mortal Kombat 1, Street Fighter 6, and the winner was Forza Motorsport.
I feel like the winner had to be either Forza or Marvel Spider-Man, because those are like the two, like Xbox's in-house studios always do a lot for accessibility in their games, and Sony's in-house studios likewise. I'm not knocking, whatever Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter have done, whatever Hi-Fi Rush has done, whatever Diablo 4 has done. Diablo 4 was the only one that I really knew about, and I was a little surprised to see it in this category, because I was like, I mean, sure, but really?
Yeah, like you said, I think Forza and Spider-Man both got the kind of Sony Microsoft thing going on. Hi-Fi Rush was a game about rhythm and combat where if you had no rhythm, you could still play through the game. So like I feel like that was kind of what got it there.
That's not an yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, like
Yeah.
that's surface level boiling it down to its simplest form. Like I don't really know what else they did accessibility wise, but Street Fighter was a similar case where from what I heard was like there's just a ton of ways you could make the game more approachable as a novice fighting game player.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was not surprised to see Forza get this because I had heard that they went like pretty crazy with the accessibility stuff in that game.
Yeah. And I guess when I think about it, I always think about accessibility in terms of like, you know, somebody who doesn't have hands can play your game or something like that, which I know is not the only definite, like by their definition,
Right.
it's like can be enjoyed by a wider audience. And so like scaling some difficulty and that sort of thing definitely helps.
Right.
But I guess when I think about it, I'm thinking of like the crazy accessibility features you see in like Forza,
Last of Us Part 2 and stuff.
Last of Us and that sort of thing versus, you know, like, hey, you can, we're Diablo. We added a colorblind mode, aren't you? Like, give us our accolades now. So,
yeah, which I think, to be fair, like since Last of Us Part 2 and kind of that like 2020, I guess that was, I feel like a lot of developers have gotten better about standardizing features like that. So now, you know, that you kind of have to look at this category a little differently because it's like, well, yeah, everybody's doing a better job. So now we kind of have to look at like what makes their accessibility unique, you know?
Yeah. Do you think we will ever see a From Software game nominated in this category? Because I personally would love to see that.
I want to say no, but assuming you and I play video games until our hands don't work, like From Software could come around by then. I don't know if, let me put it this way. I think we could see a From Software game in this category because honestly, like Armored Core is quite a bit more accessible than the Souls games. I don't think we ever see a Souls type game from them in this category. Like, I don't think we see a Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Bloodborne style game, but considering the trajectory they're on, and if they decide to broaden their horizons to other genres and different kinds of games, I could definitely see it, but we will never see, well, I don't want to say never. I would be surprised if we saw a Dark Souls type game from them in this category, which I do think accessibility is different than like just straight up difficulty, but also I think that they've put their flag in the ground, and what they want is they want this game to be this type of thing, and their accessibility / difficulty options are letting you call a friend or whatever. Like they have them hidden in the game, but it's not in a menu. Next we have VR AR game, Gran Turismo 7, Humanity, Horizon Call of the Mountain, Resident Evil Village, and Synapse, which this one I missed. I don't remember seeing it, or maybe they rushed through it. Kind of surprised to see Resident Evil win.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was in one of their, like, quick shot, like, here's 5 awards back to back to back. So it was easy to miss. It was probably something we were, like, talking over because of it was bundled into some... I'm trying to find where exactly they did it.
Like, I don't know a lot about any of these games VR wise. Like I heard good things about Humanity, heard good things about Gran Turismo 7, Resident Evil, people like the tall lady stepping on them. So I mean, that's probably why it won, if we're being honest. But I heard Horizon was kind of underwhelming, so I didn't expect it to win. I think I voted for Synapse just based on the like screenshot that they had on the website. I was like, oh, that looks like it'd be fun.
Yeah. I think I probably chose Resident Evil Village just because I had played it before.
Next we had Best Community Support. Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty, Destiny 2, Final Fantasy 16, and No Man's Sky. So this has been another interesting conversation about Cyberpunk kind of sneaking into some of these categories, but I'm pretty sure I probably voted for that one.
I think I voted for No Man's Sky on this one, just because No Man's Sky has been steady, like chugging along, like releasing just cool updates since it kind of had its glow up a year or two after it released, and has really kind of turned it around. And I knew like Cyberpunk, to me, I was like, that'll probably like get some awards elsewhere. So I'm going to give No Man's Sky a nod. I knew it wasn't going to Destiny 2 because people are angry at Destiny 2 right now. I was a little surprised to see it go to Baldur's Gate 3 just because it's like I know technically it was in early access, and so that's why it got the nod here and it ended up winning. But it was a little odd to me to see it in this category, personally.
Next, we had Best Mobile Game, which went to one of my favorite titles for a video game I've heard in a long time, which is Honkai Star Rail, which is just a group of words that mean nothing, but it won. So I don't think there's much we need to say there.
It is, yeah. It's made by the Genshin Impact people, right? That's their other game.
Mm-hmm.
So understandable that it would win. Monster Hunter now shouldn't have been on the list. I don't think it's a very good game. Like, it's fine, but it's just Pokemon Go. I played enough Pokemon Go. It's all of the Pokemon Go clones I've kind of looked at and been like, meh, nah.
I think the industry just doesn't really know mobile gaming, so they're like, hey, these are names we recognize.
Yeah.
Next, we had Best Debut Indie Game, Cocoon, Dredge, Pizza Tower, Venba, and Viewfinder, and it went to Cocoon.
I was okay with that. Cocoon was the only game off this list that I had played, but I enjoyed it. I had a fun time with it.
I also feel like there's no wrong answer.
Yeah. Like, I heard good things about Dredge. I watched Donkey play Pizza Tower, and it seemed like he had a good time with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Is Venba the cooking one? Is that?
Yes.
So I've heard good things about that. I've heard good things from Tim about Viewfinder, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All good ones.
Yeah. And we have a video on Cocoon on our YouTube channel if you want to learn more about it. Next we had Best Indie Game, which Cocoon, Dave the Diver, Dredge, Sea of Stars, and Viewfinder. And Sea of Stars took this one, which I was happy to see as someone who has enjoyed what he has played of that game. I kind of fell off of it and haven't been back yet, but I plan to. It's still installed. I would love to finish it. But yeah, great game. I think it deserved the award. So again, probably not a wrong answer other than Dave the Diver, which apparently is not actually indie, but we're an hour in, so we're not here to debate that.
Yeah. It's more of the vibe.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about the vibes, man. Next, we had Best Ongoing Game, which was between Apex Legends, Cyberpunk 2077, Final Fantasy XIV, Fortnite, and Genshin Impact. Cyberpunk, the probably least deserving of this category, but the winner and probably the one I voted for.
Yeah, I think I voted for Fortnite in this because I disagreed with Cyberpunk being in it at all. I was like, yes, technically they've continued to update Cyberpunk, but not because it was ever meant to be a constantly ongoing, evolving thing. Yeah. Like it was broken. And so they've continued. It would be different if it worked for people when it came out. Like, I thought it was a good game when I played it, but it's like, the ongoing part, I was like, no.
The only reason I voted for Cyberpunk in any categories was because the industry just absolutely shat all over itself when it released about everything technically about the game, and very few people and outlets talked about the quality of the game itself. And so I was like, oh, we're finally at the point where Cyberpunk can get some recognition for what it did right. And so that was kind of my own personal bias for like casting my vote with Cyberpunk on some of these categories. But I do agree that it was kind of shoved and forced into a lot of these categories just because now the industry has decided, oh, it is actually a pretty good game and it's not popular to take a dump on it anymore. So now we'll talk about how good it is.
Yep.
Next, we had Games for Impact. A bunch of games we did not play. A Space for the Unbound, Chance of Sonar, Goodbye, Volcano High, Chia, Terra Nil, and Venba. Which some of these I definitely recognize. Chia is the one that I voted for, the one that won, and the one that I'd be most likely to pick up and play on like a rainy afternoon.
Yeah, I think I voted for Terra Nil. You can play it on Netflix on your phone.
Was that the one where my daughter was like,
no, it was not this one.
The logo come up and she's like, we can't play that game. We don't have Netflix. And I was like, well, it's that Xbox at the bottom, so we probably could play it. She's like, no, we could never play that game. And I was like, yeah, okay, you're right.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it like, cause Netflix on like your mobile phone has like access to games, and Terra Nil is apparently one of those games. So
Netflix on your mobile phone.
Yeah.
We're so old.
Yeah, you're mobile.
I referenced an old Chris Pratt video. You said mobile phone. Like, here we are.
Hey, we haven't even gotten to my everything's a Fortnite bit. So
yeah, we may fall asleep before we get there. Next we had Best Performance. Ben Starr in Final Fantasy 16. Cameron Monaghan in Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Idris Elba in Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. Melanie LeBird?
Sure.
In Alan Wake
right.
2. Neil Newbin in Baldur's Gate 3. And Yuri Lowenthal in Marvel Spider-Man 2. This one, I was pretty conflicted with my vote. I think I ended up voting for Yuri Lowenthal because, I mean, even though it's the same character he's been playing throughout all of these games, he still just kills it as Spider-Man. Yeah. I was also thinking Ben Starr as like a close second, but Neil Newbin from Baldur's Gate 3 won. So,
which, like, cool. People seem to like Asterion. So,
who did you vote for?
I voted for Cameron Monaghan because I was a fan of Jedi Survivor, and I really like Cal as a character, and it's impossible to like. I mean, it is Cameron Monaghan is Cal, like that is model, like that is the model. Like, it's not like Yuri Lowenthal where it's like some guy who does not look like the character model that you're playing as. It's like no, Cameron Monaghan is Cal Kestis in Star Wars, so Idris Elba is whoever Idris Elba plays in Cyberpunk. You know, it's one of those things. So
next we had Best Audio Design between Alan Wake 2, Dead Space Remake, Hi-Fi Rush, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4. Hi-Fi Rush taking this one deservedly.
Yeah, I was glad to see it get a win here because I was like, it didn't. I don't think it really won in anything else, but I've heard nothing but good things about Hi-Fi Rush, and it's on my list of like, I need to play that game when I can figure out what to delete to download it.
I don't think it's that big, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I've got Destiny 2 and now Baldur's Gate 3.
And so delete Destiny.
Somebody talked me into reinstalling Halo the other day, so...
Well, I mean, I would be down to play some Halo, but
yeah, I deleted when we get to
Witcher
announcements 3 to install Halo.
You could delete Halo and install the finals.
Rush. Yeah, well, I do have the finals installed.
Oh, okay. So we'll get there.
Next week by Daylight to get that.
You just put an external hard drive or a bigger hard drive on your Christmas list.
Right.
Best score / music. Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Final Fantasy 16, Hi-Fi Rush, Legend of Zelda. This one, I knew it had to be Final Fantasy or Zelda or maybe Hi-Fi Rush, and Final Fantasy 16 ended up taking it. I think maybe the only award it got.
I don't know any like Final Fantasy music just off the top of my head. I just know that it'll come up sometimes on like our D&D playlist, and I'm always like, that's a pretty good song.
Yeah, Final Fantasy consistently kind of kills it with music, and then 16 was the same people, like the same composer, I think, as 14, and 14 is supposedly famous for having amazing music. So yeah, there were a couple songs in 16 that were used thematically with like story moments that were some of the standout moments of the year for me personally.
Yeah.
Next we had Best Art Direction. Alan Wake 2, Hi-Fi Rush, Lies of P, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and The Legend of Zelda. It went to Alan Wake 2.
Which I think is cool. And it's a Remedy game, and Remedy always does some cool things with like art. I was a little disappointed that Lies of P didn't win.
Yeah, I would love to see Lies of P just win something. But if it didn't go to Alan Wake, Hi-Fi Rush had to be second place.
Yeah. Or Zelda. I was thinking Zelda. Has a really cool aesthetic.
The problem with Zelda is that it's like a sequel. It's like, oh yeah, Breath of the Wild probably would have won this category. But because it's the same art style as
I was just thinking like the technical achievement side of it, because the fact that Zelda Tears of the Kingdom runs on a Switch blows my mind.
Yeah.
Even like the original like Breath of the Wild, I still play on the Switch, and I'm like, the fact that this loads so quickly and play, like I can just go anywhere with next to no loading at all. And then other games I've played on Switch like just chug so hard.
We are now in the final trifecta here. We have Best Narrative: Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty, Final Fantasy 16, Marvel Spider-Man 2. I feel like some of these definitely should be here, and some of them, like Baldur's Gate, should not. Or it could be here, but definitely I'm glad it didn't win. It went to Alan Wake 2, which I have not played. But like Baldur's Gate, the whole thing is that you can manipulate the narrative, which is cool. But I feel like if I'm sitting down to experience a narrative, like Final Fantasy, Cyberpunk, and Alan Wake were the ones that stood out to me. And I was not upset to see Alan Wake take it. I would have loved to have seen Phantom Liberty get the nod, but
yeah, I'm even more excited to play Alan Wake 2 eventually. With this, just because I think the story is going to be right up my alley, basically.
Yeah.
But I was also like, from what I've heard, like Spider-Man 2 was kind of like mediocre on the story. But I was glad to see it not go to Baldur's Gate 3. Not for the same reasons. Like, I think Baldur's Gate 3 probably has a good story that people like. But it's definitely one of those where it's a lot of it, I feel like, is creating your own narrative, which is cool. But it's not. It's more of like the personal stories you're telling versus like a very clear cut narrative, which Alan Wake and like Cyberpunk and Final Fantasy definitely are.
If you like Alan Wake 2, you're gonna love Best Game Direction, because the candidates were Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And it went to Alan Wake 2.
Best game direction to me is always like the runner-up, the silver medal to Game of the Year, is what it always kind of seems to be. I think maybe in very contentious years it's gone to the same game, but I feel like for the most part, at least off the top of my head memory, that could be completely wrong. It's like, hey, here's the clear winner of Game of the Year. Here's like what our second place pick is.
So you think that let's just get to it. Game of the Year was Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. It went to Baldur's Gate 3, surprising probably no one. I was still rooting for Zelda, but I was not surprised to see Baldur's Gate. You think that Baldur's Gate was everyone's number one and Alan Wake was their number two? You think Zelda has fallen
clearly
so
Baldur's
far
Gate
out of
was
people's
everyone's
minds?
number one because it won Game of the Year.
Well, yes. But I guess I'm more concerned with, you think Alan Wake was everyone's number two pick for Game of the Year?
In the industry, yes. I feel like in the industry, I haven't heard anything about Tears of the Kingdom since like a month after it came out.
Yeah.
I feel like
Which
the average
discount
gamer,
like how good of a game it was.
Yeah, no, it definitely shouldn't.
Or
but
is.
It's to me, it's definitely like a recency bias, and also like a Tears of the Kingdom. I know it did different stuff from hearing you talk about it, but like Breath of the Wild 2 versus Alan Wake to Alan Wake 2 was a huge departure from what Alan Wake 1 was, from what I have seen. So I can see it being Like the alternative is maybe Baldur's Gate and Tears of the Kingdom split the vote for best game direction, and Alan Wake 2 was third place, but managed to come in first.
Right. Yeah. Well, Baldur's Gate, pretty much surprising nobody, swept the Game Awards. It ended up with Game of the Year. I was surprised to see Tears of the Kingdom only come away with like one award. I thought that it would be a lot more tight between those two. I think if they had released both at the end of the year, it might have been. But such is the nature of the beast. Dylan, let's move to part 2 of this episode. Let's talk about some of our favorite announcements, maybe give a handful of the things that we're excited to see going forward, without making this a Tales from the Backlog length episode. What have you got?
Yeah. I think the biggest things that came to my mind as I was watching this, the first being that everything is a Fortnite. There were just so many.
Yeah.
Here's a like Rocket League racing game. Oh, it's in Fortnite. Hey, here's like this other thing that we're doing. It's Legos. Also, it's in Fortnite. It's so there was a lot of that, which I thought was just kind of cool and interesting. The No Rest for the Wicked game, by the developers of Ori and the Blind Forest. That one had like a cool looking art style. Looked to be kind of like a top down, like fantasy medieval thing. I'm interested to see kind of what that looks like going forward. The Black Myth Wukong looked pretty dope.
Oh yeah, that looks really sick. I'm very excited to play that game.
Yeah, so that was a really cool trailer. Banisher's Ghost of New Eden, I thought looked really cool. I think I drafted it at one point for our fantasy league, but then they announced it was like delayed to next year or whatever. My concerns are that it's Dontnod, who does not make games like this, from what I can tell, like sort of the more actiony games. But it does look really cool, so I'm hopeful that it turns out to be a cool game because the aesthetic of it seems really cool. The first Berserker, Kazan or whatever, have no idea.
Oh yeah,
what Dungeon Fighter really cool. Or whatever is, but that trailer for that like just brutal like hack and slash game looked cool. I thought that was that looked like a lot of fun. I think the biggest thing for me was probably Marvel's Blade.
Really?
From Arcane. Just because like I've enjoyed every single Arcane game that I have played, and a like third person Blade game with all of, well, okay, I'll take that back. What was the vampire one that came out this year? I didn't enjoy that one a ton. But
yeah.
But this is the studio that was like Dishonored and Deathloop. So I'm more interested in this one. But like I thought, like I'm excited to see what that one will be. I think it could be really cool, and I'm not going to have to buy it, which is nice.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what that Blade game ends up being. The fact, like we were debating as they were talking about it, like third person, first person, just because they've never really done a third person game. And I was like, if it's third person, I'm on board. And then they said something about third person action. I was like, oh yeah, I'm very excited to see what that game is, especially having kind of like Marvel backing them. Like, what will it be? I'm surprised you haven't mentioned Jurassic Park or Monster Hunter yet.
Well, so I was just kind of going down my list, and I forgot Monster Hunter, which is actually my biggest game. Yes. So I was going down the list because I can't remember. There were so many things announced last night.
There was a lot, yeah.
Yeah. Light No Fire, the next game by the No Man's Sky studio, I thought looked really dope.
Yeah, that does look really cool, actually.
Yeah, like it looks like kind of a Ark Survival Evolved sort of like, tame creatures build base sort of thing, which I'm down for. I don't know how much what the legs will look like for me, but I could see us jumping into that and building like a little base and having some fun there.
Yeah. And
the actual biggest thing for me, I guess, was Monster Hunter Wilds. Basically Monster Hunter World 2. Super pumped. Cannot wait. Let's go. Little disappointed that it's 2025. but fingers crossed that it's early 2025 because historically they have released like their Monster Hunter games kind of early in the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about you? What things stood out to you?
So we mentioned Blade. We talked about Blade a little bit. Some of the things that really stood out to me that were exciting were some of the like freebies / it's out now. So the God of War DLC, the Final Fantasy 16 DLC, both of those were surprising and exciting to me. The finals coming out like that day, being like, oh, you can play it now. I've been playing that game all afternoon today and having a
Just
good
with
time.
randoms?
I want to dive into, yeah, just with randoms. I want to dive into that conversation a little bit deeper, maybe on another episode, because yes, that is probably the number one problem that I've been having with that game, because conceptually and like gameplay wise, I love it. The matches that I've been in, it's like some are super fun and exhilarating and some are just like really lopsided because you could tell that there's a team of 3 that are friends and communicating. So that was a really cool announcement. There was the one from Motion Twin that was the studio that did Dead Cells.
Yeah,
and it was like cartoon aesthetic, and then all of a sudden they started like chopping each other's heads off and stuff, and I was like, oh my god, my kid is still up here watching this with us right now. She hasn't gone to bed yet, so I kind of like lost focus on what that game actually was, but then I went back and looked at it today, and it's like, oh, I'm excited to see what the Dead Cells people do next, because they've been supporting Dead Cells for like 1 billion years at this point, so that could be pretty cool. Other than that, like, I feel like we've covered a lot of the big ones. Obviously, Kojima announced something. It was like a horror game. Hellblade looks really cool. I will definitely play Hellblade day one, but like that's not really new news to us.
Yeah,
at this show.
We've been seeing that one for a while. Yeah,
exactly.
What were your like the ones that showed something and you were just like, ew? Because I know for me, every time I feel like I see the Suicide Squad, I get less and less interested in that game.
Yeah, Suicide Squad, like, I will not play that game until it hits Game Pass or something. Or, I mean, like, same with Gotham Knights. If Aubrey hits me up and is like, hey, you want to play through Suicide Squad together? Like, I'll play it for that. Yeah. But other than that, I'm not gonna... that game, I said it in our Discord, and I said it to you, and so like you've heard this 5 times now, but like, why do they keep trying to make Suicide Squad a thing? Like, this could have been any other DC property, any other kind of team up or superhero game. Like, there were rumors that Rocksteady was making a Superman game, and even though I think Superman is like kind of a mediocre character, I would trust Rocksteady with it based on the Arkham games. That would have been more interesting than what we're getting here. And this is like a looter shooter with some Sunset Overdrive DNA, which is kind of cool. But then it's just like wrapped in this Suicide Squad skin because they were successful with Batman. And it's like, man, this feels like the DC version of Avengers. It's like a big missed opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. Like it definitely to me feels like the kind of game that's going to come out. It's going to limp along for like 1.5 years, 2 years, and then it's going to die the Avengers death. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I know at this point it's like one of those things where it's like, well, we're too far along to not put it out. Kind of like Skull and Bones, which did also get another trailer.
Yes, looking good.
But it was definitely like one of those where I'm just like, come on, like this looks bad. What was missing, I guess, is my other question, because we didn't see Hollow Knight Silksong. We didn't see Elden Ring DLC. We didn't see, like I felt like there were some that going into this we kind of felt like were shoo-ins. Were there other things that you were kind of expecting to see from this showcase, this award show thing, that weren't there?
Well, like before I go into that, there were some like kind of under the radar announcements. Like we saw Last Sentinel from
Yeah.
Lightspeed LA, and we saw the game from the
Last Sentinel
voice
does look
actor for Bayek. I don't
Yeah.
remember what his game was
His
called.
game was called Tales of Kenzara Zhao.
Yeah. So, and Palia, which seemed like a super Aubrey/Delaney type game, like
Yeah.
Emily Bateman type game. So, like,
Yeah.
there were some
Which-
cool things that like don't speak to us necessarily.
Rewatching that trailer, free to play. Didn't realize that.
Oh,
I was like, oh,
nice.
I was expecting to not
maybe
check
I'll
that
try
game
it.
out, but it's like, hey, it's coming to Switch and it's free, and I was like, interesting. Maybe I will check that game out.
Yeah, so all that to say, there were a lot of cool things that like I'm curious about, I guess I'll say, moving forward. For me, as far as what was missing, I forgot to mention Zenless Zone Zero is coming out in 2024, and that game, obviously, that is our it's goatee for next year. But
is that the one that's Atlas? Is that Atlas's game or no?
I feel like it's the Genshin people again, but that could just be me being like putting everything into a bucket. But it looks like,
I mean, it is an anime game, but
yeah. For me, like I would have loved to have seen some Spider-Man stuff, either New Game Plus or DLC, or I would have loved to have seen an update on Wolverine.
Yeah, Wolverine is another big one.
Outside of that, like I'm more excited to see things like Blade that I feel like we heard rumblings about, like, oh, somebody might be making a Blade game. I don't know if we knew that it was like Arcane and stuff up until now, but like those kind of announcements get me more excited than like, oh yeah, Wolverine exists and here's another trailer for it. Like for me, I like these kind of out of nowhere, like new announcements, but like you mentioned, I would have loved to have seen some Elden Ring DLC update or release date or anything on that, because I have been itching for a reason to get back into Elden Ring other than just, you know, replaying it again, which I could always do. But like having new content will be so exciting for that game. Another game we didn't mention, speaking of like Souls-likes, but the Last Ronin, that was another one that was exciting to me. That was the Team Ninja
one,
like samurai game. Yeah. So there were a lot of games, like there was enough here that I was satisfied and was like, oh man, there's a lot of cool stuff I'm excited to check out when it finally gets here. But as far as like what was missing, I mean, I had heard either some like silly predictions or rumors or whatever about like maybe we'll see Gear 6, and that would have like literally blown my socks off. Yeah, like I cannot wait to see what is next in that series, and it's been so long. So like there are obviously things that like on my list I would love to get more information about, but as far as like what this show was and what they delivered on the announcements front, I think it was a really solid show. I think we got a lot of cool trailers, announcements, updates, all that pretty much delivered. Really, my only complaint with the show is just like balancing out that with the actual awards. But like as far as what Geoff was able to pull in and show off, like I think we got to see some really cool stuff and get some announcements that we didn't really see coming. I mean, maybe some people saw them coming if they're like super plugged in, but like for us, just kind of casually keeping up with the industry, like there were a lot of things that kind of surprised me. A lot of things I'm looking forward to finally getting to play. But yeah, there's obviously games out there that weren't here that I would love to hear more about, like Wolverine, but you know, I'm sure we'll hear more about them at some point.
Yeah, because you know, I know Xbox typically has something in like January or February, so like, you know, we'll probably get like maybe some of their big stuff wasn't here because it's going to be there. I don't know if Sony usually does something, you know, early in the year as well. But you know, like you said, I think there were a lot of cool, like as someone who is a big fan of Monster Hunter, that one more thing was like, yes, like excellent. The only downside was 2025. But like there was a lot of cool stuff that got announced that I was excited for. like I agree with you. I think overall it was a very good, like just hey, here's a lot of cool stuff that is coming out sometime either next year or the year after. So I did in our Discord, I was kind of talking about like where is my Baldur's Gate 3 on Xbox, Jeff. I did read an article today that the guy, the head of Larian Studios, who was dressed in the armor, like that was one of the things that he was supposed to do when he got up to give the speech, was he was supposed to also be like, oh yeah, and it's out tonight on Xbox, go, and he forgot
But they
to
rushed
do
him.
that. So well, that too. but yeah, it was overall, like I thought it was a great show and we saw a lot of really cool stuff. So
Yeah. As far as announcements and things like that, I there's really nothing to complain about. The only thing I complain about with the Game Awards is that when you call it the Game Awards and then you do like a bunch of the awards in the pre-show and then rush the rest of them during the show, like that's really my only complaint. As far as announcements and world premieres and like things to get excited about being a fan of gaming, like that's why I tune in. It's a lot of fun. It's just the theme of the show, like we need to find maybe a little bit better balance, but yeah, overall had a good time, really excited about a lot of the stuff that's coming out in the future. Is there anything else you want to say on the show itself before we kind of wrap this episode up?
Yeah, I just went through and did like a quick count, and I forget how many categories there were for awards, but only 10 of them got like an actual like focus time, and weren't just part of like a quick like boom boom boom. I want to say there were maybe like 25. So
yeah, and the fact that they put like family game, which is a legit category in my opinion, in the pre-show, like just kind of shows.
There were 32 by my quick count. So like only a third, less than a third of the awards actually got like a focus time on them. And so yeah, that, and some of the awards, like to me, were kind of ones that they spent a lot of time on like best adaptation, and I was kind of like, yeah, I would have liked to see maybe something else get a chance to shine versus like best adaptation. I'm not saying it's the worst idea ever to like just kind of rapid fire through some of them. I know people care about esports, I do, but I don't care about esports, so I was not sad to see what's her name, just kind of like rapid
Sydney
fire
Goodman.
through all of those. Sydney Goodman.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they're I do think it'd be cool to give some more people in the industry a chance to talk about their thing. I didn't look to see some of these, like I don't think outside of Neo Newbern, Baldur's Gate 3 went up. Like I think they kind of just like everything else that it won was in one of those rapid fire categories. I think that's fine. If they know who's going to win ahead of time, maybe they can like bundle in some of the like, yeah, we don't need to like bring Baldur's Gate 3 up here 15 times. We can let them, just come up once to get Game of the Year and do their big spiel then. But like, I don't think Final Fantasy ever got a chance to like come up and talk. Sea of Stars, it would have been cool to see some people come up from like Sea of Stars and talk a little bit. Street Fighter 6, So like some of the, even like Legend of Zelda, I don't know if they got a chance to like come up and actually talk about the game, So
yeah, they did when they went up for Best Action Adventure or whatever. They a couple people went up there for that, but I mean,
okay.
Yeah, like you say 10 out of 32, like that's pretty telling. Yeah. Cool. Well, that is our Geoff Keighley's Game Awards episode for this year. If you are interested in sharing your thoughts and opinions on the Game Awards or our takes on it, jump into our Discord. The link will be in our podcast description, and you can let us know what you thought about the Game Awards and how you would fix it. As far as the podcast, we have a bunch of exciting content coming up. We have our predictions wrap-up episode. That's going to be a lot of fun. We have our Game of the Year lists and awards that we're going to do. We have our fantasy critic update that I think we're going to do on the podcast as well as the YouTube channel this year. So a lot of really exciting things on the podcast feed to look forward to. And if you enjoy them, if you're having a good time listening to this, we would really appreciate you letting us know. Give us a positive review on your platform of choice. If they allow it, give us a rating, a review, whatever it is. Just any of those methods that you can support us with on those apps and platforms really helps grow the show and improve our outreach in the algorithms that we have no control over outside of that. So yeah, that would be fantastic. Dylan, I know we've got some exciting ideas about YouTube that we've been kicking around. So what's going on over there?
Yeah, so we're trying to kind of refocus kind of a little bit of what we're doing on YouTube, and so we've come up with a few ideas for like some more focused content that we're going to have over there. The first of those kind of dropped this past week when this comes out, where we are taking a look at things on like Game Pass, possibly to also branch out to like whatever PlayStation's is and Nintendo's is or whatever. But right now, just, Game Pass, where we're, not trying to necessarily like critically review something hardcore, but more so, hey, you're an average person who is paying for the subscription, like what's some cool stuff that you could check out? And so the first one dropped over there. It's Cocoon. So check that out if you are interested. We've also got some other things kind of coming down the pipes, I think. Next week, when this comes out, will be on the books, at least, is a review of Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty, or both. If not, blame Andrew for that one. So...
Rude.
But yeah, we've got some cool stuff. So if you aren't subscribed to us on YouTube, maybe go take a look at that and check it out. And if you're listening to this as a podcast on YouTube, leave a comment to let us know that, because I don't believe that you exist. So
perfect. And with that, this has been the Game Awards episode for 2023. We appreciate you all so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Friendly Neighborhood Gamers podcast. If so, we would greatly appreciate your help in growing the show and the community by giving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any other podcasting app that allows it.
We also have some great videos on our YouTube channel, including reviews, rankings, and other topics. We would really appreciate you checking it out. And if you want to keep up with everything going on in the neighborhood, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and feel free to jump in our Discord server.
We hope to see you there. Links for everything are in the podcast description. Thanks again for listening, and remember,
stay friendly, gamers.